Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Northwestern Women's Sports Evening Meeting. This indeed is a particularly special meeting because in addition to our women's board members, we also welcome women's sports spouses and special friends. So we thank you all for joining us this evening. Once again, I am delighted to introduce Amy Shriver and thank her for beautifully keeping all matters women's sport related well organized and for very efficiently and beautifully orchestrating the details of our meeting. So thank you, Amy. Before we begin, I'd like to offer just a few reminders for our women's board members. On behalf of our membership chair, Bobby Dennison, the membership committee is going to be meeting on March the 12th, and new member proposals and seconder proposals will be due no later than March 3rd. The forms are available on the Women's Board website, and once completed, please email them to Amy Shriver in the Women's Board office. Next, on behalf of Marty Peterson Shaw, our nominating committee chair, the nominating committee will be meeting mid-March. Please reach out to Marty if you have any ideas to fill the 6 positions being slated for next year's executive committee, including president, vice president of programs, vice president of membership, and members at large. Finally, on behalf of Dina Perry, our scholarship chair, today we have the privilege to welcome and briefly hear from one of the outstanding students that the Women's Sports Scholarship Program has supported. It is my pleasure to introduce Elizabeth Betts. She is a graduating senior in the Medill School of Journalism who has graciously taken time from her studies to join us this evening and briefly share a bit about her Northwestern experiences and her career goals. Elizabeth?
Hi, everyone. As Lisa introduced with that wonderful introduction, my name is Elizabeth Betts. I'm a senior at Northwestern studying journalism and political science. And so after I graduate, I'm going to be working in New York in the secondary private equity industry. And in the future, I plan on attending law school and becoming a corporate lawyer. And so the Women's Board has been invaluable to my scholarship at Northwestern. It's afforded me the opportunity to study abroad in London in the fall. It's given me access to wonderful events like this and events that I've attended ever since I became the recipient of the scholarship my sophomore year of college. So thank you, everyone, for selecting me and for continuing to have these wonderful events. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We really do wish you all the very best in your academic and career endeavors. As of February 25th, this very generous Women's Board has donated $61,827 on behalf of all of the extraordinary students like Elizabeth, whom we support. Thank you very much, everyone who has contributed so far, and to those of you who may contribute by the end of our fiscal year, which is August 31st. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is abundant history oozing from the walls of these hallowed halls. I can feel it, and I hope you can too. Founded in 1859, this was the very first law school established in the city of Chicago with 23 students enrolled. This past August 2023, 241 new students enrolled. The law school officially became affiliated with Northwestern University in 1873, and in 1891, it was named the Northwestern University School of Law. Since 2015, it has proudly been the Northwestern University Pritzker School of Law. Indeed, much has evolved and been accomplished through the years. No longer is this school only about achieving a JD after 3 years. For this evening's focus, I'm sure all of you, like me, it will be a treat to hear about the work of the Donald Pritzker Entrepreneurship Law Center. Please welcome the Women's Board Vice President of Programs, Julie Peterson, to introduce this evening's program and speakers. Julie?
Thank you, Amy. Dean Osofsky is with us tonight, and I'm going to introduce her. Hari Osofsky is the Dean and Myra and James Bradwell Professor of Law at Northwestern's Pritzker School of Law, and the Professor of Environmental Policy and Culture at the Weinberg College of Arts and Sciences. Her leadership focuses on advancing the innovation needed in legal education at this time of change. Dean Osofsky received her JD from Yale Law School and a PhD in geography from the University of Oregon. Prior to joining Northwestern University, she served as dean at the Penn State Law and the Penn State School of International Affairs, and on the faculties of the University of Minnesota Law School, Washington and Lee University School of Law, the University of Oregon School of Law, and Whittier Law School. She clerked for Judge Dorothy W. Nelson and of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Dean Osofsky's over 50 publications focus on improving governance and addressing injustice in energy and climate change regulation. She's collaborated extensively with business, government, and nonprofit leaders to make bipartisan progress on these issues through her leadership roles and her teaching. Her Emory Law Journal article, Energy Partisanship, was awarded the 2018 Morrison Prize, which recognizes the most impactful sustainability-related legal academic article published in North America during the previous year. The American Bar Association's Legal Technology Resource Center recognized her as one of the 2019 Women of Legal Tech, and her leadership and mentorship work was recognized by the Association for Law, Property, and Society's 2016 Distinguished Service Award. It's my honor to bring you Dean Osofsky, who will then introduce our panel. Thank you.
So thank you so much. And I, of course, want to give a big thank you to Lisa Tribbett and Julie Peterson, and also Sebastian Bujak and the whole amazing facilities team at the law school who helped put together the event as well. So can we give everyone a big thank you? And I'm so excited you're considering law school. I mean, as I said, it's never too early to start thinking about being a law dean. After corporate practice, of course. I get the really exciting honor of getting to introduce our incredible team from the Donald Pritzker Entrepreneurship Law Center. And we're just so honored to have the center featured at tonight's event. Founded more than 20 years ago now, the Donald Pritzker Entrepreneurship Law Center is an academic center at the law school that prepares lawyers to serve as entrepreneurs as clients, and also to approach legal problems in a more entrepreneurial manner. And of course, I don't have to tell anyone in this room how desperately we need the kind of innovation that this center is fostering right now in our society. The center served hundreds of entrepreneurs, and it's one of the first comprehensive programs in the United States to provide intensive hands-on training for students who want to be transactional lawyers or founders of startup companies. And, you know, one of the things I find when I go talk to alums is, you know, I always ask them, because we try to ground our innovation in listening to people who practice law, and I'll be like, what was the best thing? You know, what was the most helpful thing? And for transactional lawyers to be able to have an opportunity like this clinic is just extraordinary. The center was the first group at Northwestern to work with an organization, Greener by Default, to commit to providing plant-based meals at our events to help the environment and animal welfare. The center's also worked with the city of Chicago to provide legal workshops to entrepreneurs in under-resourced communities. And last year, the center launched a new speaker series, The Future of Innovation, Sustainability in Law, and the Law, with more than 100 students attending their kickoff event in the fall, which featured the founders of Clever Carnivore, which is a business that came out of Northwestern and created a technology for lab-grown meat. And so I just want to introduce the amazing group of people we have at this table, starting right here with Professor Esther Barron. She's a clinical professor of law and the director of the Donald Pritzker Entrepreneurship Law Center. In the clinical program, she works with students to represent startups, more mature companies, and social entrepreneurs in a variety of transactional matters. And in addition to her clinical work with clients, her other courses include the entrepreneurship law and Uvention, medical, innovation, venture capital, and business associations. And she previously practiced at Goldberg & Cohen in Chicago in its commercial finance department, representing lenders and other financial institutions in middle market debt transactions. Professor Stephen Reed is a clinical professor of law, the assistant director of the Donald Pritzker Entrepreneurship Law Center, and co-director of the JD MBA program at Northwestern Pritzker School of Law. In the clinical legal program, Professor Reed works with students to represent startups, more mature companies, and social entrepreneurs in a variety of transactional matters. In the classroom, he teaches business associations, advanced corporate law, business combinations and mergers and acquisitions, and co-teaches entrepreneurship law. Previously, Professor Reed was an attorney at Proskauer Rose LLP in Los Angeles, where he worked with public, private, and nonprofit companies of varying sizes on a variety of legal issues, including contracts, mergers and acquisitions, venture capital transactions, and licensing. You can see, and I'm just getting started, what an amazing team we have here tonight. Professors Barron and Reed also collaborate. They're co-authors on Entrepreneurship Law, Cases and Materials, which is the leading textbook for doctrinal and clinical entrepreneurship law courses. Then, of course, we have Professor Darren Green. He's a professor of entrepreneurship, venture capital, and practice at the law school. He's an expert in the fields of venture capital and early stage financing, entrepreneurship, and contracts. In addition, Professor Green advises a wide range of startups and early stage clients on corporate technology, venture capital, and other transactional matters. And Professor Green's clients span a wide variety of industries, including software, mobile, green and sustainable industries, web design, SaaS, professional services, travel, engineering, retail, publishing, manufacturing, insurance, advertising, food services, and location-based technologies. It's quite a list. And then, of course, you know, I always say that our students at this law school give me hope for the future, and these students embody that. I have you in opposite order of how you're sitting, but I'm going to flip it so that we stay in order. So first, we have Neka Ukpabi. Did I do that right? She's a third-year student and also a teaching assistant for Structuring Transactions real estate course. She's also an underrepresented student initiative fellow and a DEI innovation program fellow. She's providing leadership in so many critical places in the law school. Earlier this month, Neka represented our law school in the UCLA transactional law competition. And following law school, she's going to be joining the private equity group of Weil Gotshal and Manges LLP. Then to her left, we have Patrick Buthy. He's a third-year student in DeepHealth's intensive clinic program. He's interested in patent law and is going to be pursuing a career in patent litigation. And after law school, he will begin working as an associate at the firm Morris Nichols in Delaware. So please join me in welcoming this extraordinary panel. And I'm going to sit down so you can hear Darren.
Wow, well, thank you for that introduction. We really appreciate it. And Julie, thank you so much for inviting us. We're not supposed to have, favorite clients, but if we did, it would have been Julie. And thank you all for being here. We're really excited to share our work with all of you. So the dean mentioned that we started a long time ago, 20 years ago, and I wanted to just, before we talk about what we're doing now, I wanted to share a little bit about how we got here. And we're very proud that we were actually a student demand. So students went to the then dean and said, we really want a transactional clinic. And there weren't any others. So we were the first in the country. And luckily for the students and maybe more so for us, Northwestern is committed to student ideas and making sure students get what they want from their education. So they started a transactional clinic. And we were the first in the country. Now there are probably 100, maybe more, and many of them are modeled after what Northwestern started. So it's such a source of pride for us, and we're so grateful to those students who came up with this idea
in 1998 and went to the dean with their idea and actually created a new clinical program. Since then, we've really grown. So we started as a clinical program. In 2015, we grew to an academic center, and there's so many components now. So the clinic is near and dear to our heart, and we're going to share more about the work we do in the clinic with you in a few minutes. But I just wanted to also let you know the other parts of our center. So we have courses now, doctrinal and simulation courses. We have speaker series where we get to bring in really incredible entrepreneurs and lawyers and venture capitalists. What we say to our students is, as much as you can learn in the classroom, for entrepreneurship, you also have to hear from entrepreneurs, and you have to hear from people in the real world. So we like to connect what we're teaching to what people are actually doing, and we do it in a really intentional way. So the speaker series gives us an opportunity to bring in a lot of amazing people from the community. So we also have events. We're having a symposium on March 29th on the overlap between animal welfare and environmental issues. Like many big problems, those are two big problems. Innovation is how we're going to solve those problems, right? So we feel like as an entrepreneurship center, we need to be part of that conversation and bring in thought leaders from different areas to think about how we can make the world better. We even have trips. We've taken our students to Silicon Valley and San Francisco and studied the entrepreneurial ecosystem there and compared it to what's going on in other parts of the country. So we're very proud of a robust, well-rounded program that we offer to our students. The dean mentioned this too, and I get this question a lot, like, well, why an entrepreneurship program at the law school? Like, isn't that something for Kellogg? And we say, well, Kellogg has a fabulous entrepreneurship program, and we're so happy that we get to partner with them on many events and initiatives, but we're not necessarily training our students to be entrepreneurs. We're thrilled when that happens. Occasionally does. But what we're really focused on is training lawyers who are going to be problem solvers, who are going to think creatively. And the exposure to the way entrepreneurs think helps train better lawyers. And we hear that time and time again from practicing attorneys who hire our students and come back to us and say, there's something different. Your students, they think differently. They address problems differently. They look at clients' goals differently. And that's really important to us, to train lawyers, to train future lawyers to be dedicated to their clients' goals and figure out a way to get there in similar ways that entrepreneurs are able to sort of envision the future and figure out a way to make it happen. So that's a bit about sort of an overview of our center. As I mentioned, the clinic is really the crown jewel. We're very proud of the work we do in our clinic. So I want to start with talking about our clinical work. We represent live clients. We represent clients in the Chicagoland community. We represent student entrepreneurs. We do workshops. We do office hours. We host events for our clients. And we try to service as many entrepreneurs as we can, again, with the goal of student training. So I want to turn the conversation to Steve and ask you if you could share a story, a favorite client, something interesting that you're working on.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to. So hi, everyone. Welcome to the law school. I'm going to talk a little bit about a client we have that's called STEM Generation. This was founded by a woman named Crystal Bell, who previously had worked in marketing at United. And she, like many people, noted that in the STEM fields and in STEM education, there's a lack of representation by women and minorities. And so she decided to introduce some product to the market that would encourage kids from a very young age to think about these fields as a possibility and to link them to exciting professions. And so she started this company, STEM Generation, who's our client, and they make dolls that go under the name Surprise Powers. There's 5 of them. I brought one just to show you. This is Cody the Coder. She knows how. I can show you too. Yeah. She knows how to code, and she's extremely playable. If you trigger her, she talks. She has 70 some odd phrases, STEM related phrases, but they're all kind of fun and hip. They're not, nerdy. And so this is the product. Now, when you think about a doll like this, it's obviously fun for kids, but there's a ton of legal aspects to it that our students have been able to work on. So for one thing, there's trademark law. How do you protect the brand of your doll so that other companies can't just put the same brand on their competitive product? So we helped Crystal to research and then ultimately register the brand Surprise Powers and also the names of all of her dolls. In addition to Cody the Coder, I don't think I can remember all that, Vera the Veterinarian, Maria the Mathemagician, that's a good one, and others, and we helped get trademark protection in all of those. But of course, there's also the art of the doll itself, which can be protected by copyright. There's the packaging, which can be protected by copyright, and we helped her get protection for all of those. But then, of course, there's also, like, the artist who makes this. Crystal's really talented, but she's not in particular a visual artist. So she hires people to create this art. She hires someone to create a sculpture of the dolls. And all of that work she has to pay for. The person creates it, and then she wants to make sure that her company owns it. And our students in the legal clinic prepared the contracts for all of that. I mentioned that the doll talks. So that involved having a recording engineer record voices. It involved having a writer write the script. It involved having a contract with children, super dicey in Illinois, really tricky. And all of that legal work for all of that was done by our students. Then the dolls have to be manufactured somewhere, so she hired a manufacturer in China. Our students worked on that contract for the Chinese manufacturer. The packaging is manufactured separately, and somebody has to put it all together. Our students worked on those contracts. Then, once you've got the product, you need to market it. And so our students helped, again, with all of the contracts for the different marketing experts who Crystal hired, who put the work together. She then, as a way to try to help sell the product in the early years, did partnerships with schools. If there was a foundation who has the same mission and believed in the dolls, and she created a curriculum, somebody created the curriculum, and we helped her make sure that her company owned it. And then it got sold to schools. We worked on that contract, and the funder came in and put in money to buy the dolls and all of that. And then eventually her dolls made it into Target and Nordstrom and Macy's, and they're sold on Amazon. And I hate to keep repeating it, but our students did all of that too. The legal side of it. Crystal did all of this, by the way. It's crazy. She's a one-person operation. All of this other work that's been done, she outsourced to other people, but she's really the driving force behind it. She's extremely inspirational. In fact, Chase Bank recognized her as one of their sort of leading small businesses and put her in all their marketing. If you've ever walked past a Chase branch during those 6 months, you saw her photo there because she was featured. And our students did the contract with Chase because they wanted to use her image and they wanted to use images of the dolls, and so he had to work all that out. And by the way, the Chase lawyers, very difficult to negotiate with. There's future plans for this product as well. She's been talking about doing books or possibly an animated series, and we've been there by her side, supporting her with the legal side as she's realizing her dreams with that. So that's an example of just one client and some work we've done for STEM generation.
Well, thank you, and thank you for sharing the doll with us. Love it. Darren, can you share a little bit about, so one of the things we're really proud of and committed to is working in the Northwestern entrepreneurial ecosystem and making sure we're supporting students. And so, Darren, if you could share a little bit about your client, Cue the Curve.
I don't have a prop. I don't have a doll. I don't have anything. I feel I'll do my best. I'll do my best anyway. The doll's in front of me for part of the time. As Esther mentioned, one of the things we're all amazed by is the amount of entrepreneurship across Northwestern, undergraduate, all the graduate schools. It's something that I think has been growing over the years. And I mean, we've written about it before, whether it's businesses started as part of a class project or just a side gig, right? So someone's working on something while they're in school and it sort of turns into something real. And we love sort of being there to help students when they realize they've got something to help sort of push it along and maybe commercialize it. The business that Esther was mentioning, there's an undergrad student by the name of Charlotte Oxnam. She had a fashion blog, and it was just sort of a labor of love. It was sort of fun. She wrote about clothing, and people started coming to the blog and started writing about clothing, and it grew, and it grew, and it grew, and there was sort of a demand that she realized. She was in engineering, so she was pretty busy with school. And she realized she might have had a business. And so she turned it into a business called Cue the Curves, which is a shopping website. So it was a mix. Her sort of fashion blog had evolved, became this website. That grew and grew and grew while she was still an undergraduate. She got involved at the Garage. Many of you are probably familiar with the Garage, the sort of entrepreneurial space in Evanston for Northwestern students. Had sort of a position there, worked on her business there. Sort of kept going, ended up participating in VentureCat, which many of you are probably familiar with. It's sort of the business sort of pitch competition at Northwestern, which has grown and become a fantastic endeavor. And she found her way to us. And we had a student team that got to work with her. The project wasn't so different. It was some of the similar issues that Steve talked about with the doll. There were lots of different brands being written about on her website. People were reviewing brands, critiquing brands. We like this one, we don't like this one. And so all of these trademarked names were being used across her site. She didn't really know, what do I have the right to use and what don't I have the right to use, and what are the rules around use if I do have the right to use it. When she came to us, she thought she needed a simple trademark, and we find this with entrepreneurs often. By the time we were done with her at the first meeting, we had like an 8-part research project, which went well beyond the trademark. And the students worked on a lot of sort of interesting issues that they'd never looked at before, sort of unusual issues around intellectual property, which I think ended up being a big help for her. As I mentioned, she went to VentureCat. She won VentureCat. She was the #1 business in VentureCat, and eventually ended up in TechStars, which is sort of a big local and national incubator. You may have heard of that as well. So she's it's amazing, sort of this rocket ship that started as this fashion blog that was sort of a little idea that she was working on, won competitions, ended up at TechStars, has received funding, and is knocking the cover off the ball now. The business is doing fantastic. There's lots of students across the university doing all sorts of incredible things, and it's sort of one of our joys to get to work with them and help them sort of bring those ideas to life.
Thank you. And she found her way to us because we're at the Garage all the time saying, can we work with you? Can we help you? Here are things that we can do. And I'll just share a quick story about Charlotte. I was getting ready for work one day, not too long ago in the fall, watching one of the morning news shows. And all of a sudden I was looking at the TV. It was like, not Good Morning America. I think it was the one on CBS. And I was like, that's Charlotte being interviewed on TV. It was amazing. And then the next day she was actually coming 2 days later, she was coming to the law school to do one of our speaker series talks. And she wore the same fabulous green dress. I love it. But she's fantastic and really a source of, pride for Northwestern, one of our students who's really out there doing great things in entrepreneurship. So Steve and Darren have mentioned our students and how much work they do and how many projects they have. And many of our students take clinic both semesters in addition to lots of other classes. Some students take it one semester. And then some students, that's all they do for a semester. They're in what we call our intensive clinic semester program, and we get them for the whole semester. And so, Patrick, if you could share a little bit about your experience as our intensive clinic student, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, sure. Like Esther said, I'm in the intensive clinic, so that basically means that I'm doing all clinic all the time. Last semester, I just did the regular clinic schedule, and I loved it so much, I just knew I wanted to come back, and I wanted to do it full time. And I think one of the best things about that is just the variety of clients that I've gotten to see and the variety of legal work that I wouldn't be able to see unless I was taking on more clients. So that's kind of been my experience this semester. Worked with many amazing entrepreneurs, seen a lot of cool businesses, everything from like tech startups, high-tech companies where the technology goes way over my head, to things like alternative, like plant-based vegan snacks, and also like recruiting software and just all sorts of very cool businesses that I had never seen before.
Awesome. And since we're plugging our clients, I'll just plug the plant-based snack that you mentioned, Carolyn's Crisps. It's delicious. Really.
I'd love to eat one of those while hugging a doll of some type.
So we do a lot of client work. Many of our clients are the types of clients you heard about. We also work with not-for-profits and social entrepreneurs. Some of you may have heard of the Public Benefit Corporation or the B Corps. We've been doing a lot of that more recently. But in addition to the client work, because we can only take on a certain number of clients, and we want to have as much impact as we can and help as many entrepreneurs as we can. And we also want to give our students the chance to have that impact and teach. You know, it's one thing to understand how to do a trademark search. It's another thing to go to a workshop and teach a bunch of people how to do it. So we are out and about doing workshops and office hours throughout the semester. So Darren, I'm hoping you could share a little bit about the new programs we've started with workshops and office hours.
Yeah, no, we've, for years now, we've sort of been out across the city speaking to different entrepreneurs, kind of entrepreneurial hubs, to give workshops on topics that would be relevant to an entrepreneur, whether it's trademarks or forming an entity, founders agreements, all the things that a founder in a startup would want to know about. We're at places like 1871, which is like Chicago's big hub for entrepreneurship, or 2112, which is more sort of the creative hub for entrepreneurship, and many others. And that's always fun because we're working with entrepreneurs that have often done it before. They're kind of serial entrepreneurs. They've done 2, 3, 4. They sort of know what they're doing. They know how to do this. And those are the types of companies you're going to read about eventually. I was going to say the newspaper, but there aren't really many newspapers anymore. Wherever people read about things these days, these are the companies that make the news. They raise lots of money and they have big exits and all of that. And so that's fun for us and it's fun for the students. Something we've been pushing on now for years is to find ways to sort of work with entrepreneurs who would have a tougher time finding us, sort of under-resourced entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship can take many different forms. It can be that exciting business which is going to raise millions of dollars, or it can be a store opened up on the corner by a couple of first-time entrepreneurs. So we've been finding ways to sort of get in front of entrepreneurs that may not know about the Donald Pritzker Entrepreneurship Law Center, and they have a harder time finding us. We've crafted relationships with the YWCA and the Chicago Urban League. The most recent one, which we've now been doing for a couple of years, which has been fantastic. We now have a relationship with the City of Chicago. And the City of Chicago has this new program, these small business opportunity centers, where they put on programming in sort of 7 different regions of the city for entrepreneurs that don't have a lot of resources around them, who sort of really need the help. And so we're now sort of the resource to give talks to them about all of the issues that they're going to need to know about to open a business. We did one a couple of weeks ago, and I think we probably had 170, 180 attendees. So we're reaching a lot of folks with these talks, and students get to come and sort of listen in on these talks. And one of the things we really enjoy about doing it is a lot of these entrepreneurs that are sort of listening to us and participating in these sessions will then realize, oh, I can apply and become a client of the clinic, right? So the clinic that Esther was talking about before, we love working with clients that we meet at these events. So whenever we do one of these events, we'll then get 5, 6, 7 client applications to do actual real legal work for some of these folks. And so we're working now with entrepreneurs across the city, all over the city of Chicago. And it's a service which I think is, it's wonderful for us, it's wonderful for them, it's wonderful for the students. And that's something we intend to sort of keep growing. We continue to find new hubs and new ways to reach new entrepreneurs. So that's something we're going to continue in the future.
Darren says we want to keep growing it, and I haven't mentioned to him that actually Allie, our program coordinator in the audience who plans everything fabulous, and I had a call today with the director of the Englewood Business Development Center, who actually sat in on the workshop that you were just talking about, Darren, and we just committed to doing one in a couple Saturdays, so I hope that works well for everybody. But it is really, it's a wonderful opportunity to get to meet entrepreneurs all over the city. So we also compete in competitions. Our students, I should say, compete in competitions, and it's pretty amazing to see. So there's transactional law competitions at different schools throughout the country, and one that's pretty well known is one that's hosted at UCLA, where students actually negotiate a hypothetical deal. And I've seen students, they'll come to me at the beginning and say, oh, I'm not really sure, what is this term sheet or what's an asset purchase agreement? And by the end of the competition, their associates, I mean, they're marking up agreements, saying the earnout isn't fair, taking baskets out. I'm throwing a lot of lingo around because that's what they're doing by the end. I had one of the coaches that we had a few years ago say she had one of the documents the student marked up sitting on her desk, and she was looking for it, and she kept moving everything around because she thought it was just one of her contracts that she was working on. So she finally thought, oh, here it is right in front of me. And we have a student here who just got back from the UCLA competition. So Nika, could you share a little bit about your experience at UCLA, preparing for it, but then also the competition?
Yes, so hi everyone. As Esther mentioned, I recently competed in the UCLA transactional law competition, and truly it was a great experience to kind of tie together various principles that I learned here in the Entrepreneurship Law Clinic and kind of put it into a real-world simulation where myself and my teammate were able to draft amendments as well as do a lot of redlining and drafting for a stock purchase deal that our hypothetical client had. And another great thing was that we were able to be coached by a recent Northwestern Law alum who is working in the Mergers and Acquisition department of my soon-to-be firm, Weil Gotshal. So that was great to be able to learn real-world and also current market-related information. And all of that tied together with the various client calls as well as strategy calls that we had really and truly paid off, since when we went to UCLA and were able to compete, we received quite a lot of good feedback on the fact that we were not only prepared but very knowledgeable on the subject matter and willing to kind of speak up when the opposing side had different comments than what we did and things of that nature. So it truly was a great experience and something that I think goes very well not only towards my current schoolwork but also my future career as a private equity attorney.
That's great. And tell me if you agree, but it's one thing learning about terms in a law school class, and it's another thing when you're responsible for drafting a document and negotiating those terms.
Yes, absolutely, and also negotiating against students from literally across the country. So I was able to see differences in our negotiation styles, but also be able to be flexible and willing to pivot when maybe something during my first negotiation might need to be altered for my second negotiation. So overall, I think it was a great experience and really honed in on the idea of being flexible, but also being ready and willing to communicate with your team, but also being willing to pivot if need be.
Which is a great skill for lawyers. And you're too humble to say, but she got fabulous feedback from the judges, and we're really impressed with you and your partner in terms of the negotiating style and your command of the various terms that you were negotiating. So congratulations. That's fabulous.
Thank you.
So now I want to turn to another initiative that the law school has been working on, which is the West Coast Initiative, which is a fabulous semester in San Francisco. That's part of it. We have a semester in Los Angeles as well, but I'm going to focus on San Francisco. The Donald Pritzker, I'm sorry, and Seattle. At Seattle would be fabulous too. But we're going to focus on San Francisco because that's the part that we're involved in. So our center has been committed to the program since it's actually even before it started, when we were just taking students out to Silicon Valley for the trip that I mentioned earlier. But Darren, if you could talk a little bit about sort of how we've been involved in the past and the exciting new class that's called The Real Deal that we're going to be introducing next year.
Yeah, no, as Esther mentioned, we've been sort of going out west now for a number of years, and it's been sort of fun to see the evolution of Northwestern's presence on the West Coast. It's grown and it's grown over the years. Years ago, we would take groups of students from here, from different programs at Northwestern, out to the Bay Area, to Silicon Valley, to San Francisco, and we would meet with any number of folks out there, sort of thought leaders, venture capitalists. We've been to Andreessen Horowitz a bunch of times, sort of in their offices, which is kind of neat. We've been to Google X, which is like their sort of cutting edge building where they test new ideas.
Weren't allowed to take pictures there.
I know. I almost accidentally took a picture. We were at Impossible Foods before anyone knew what Impossible Foods was. And of course, afterwards, we had to go try an Impossible Foods burger in San Francisco. It was hard to find back then. We had to find like the one restaurant that served Impossible burgers so we could taste them after we saw how they were made. So we would sort of meet with all of these. It was sort of a class around innovation in the law. And we would meet with all of these folks. At the end of each day, we would sit around in our hotel and sort of debrief about the day, kind of what struck us. It was almost overwhelming. We would meet with these incredible people, often 4 or 5 meetings in a day, all across the city, and come back and talk about it, and we'd go back out and do it again the next day. So we did this for a number of years. When sort of the San Francisco Immersion program started a few years ago, we sort of linked up with that program, and we started working with students both that we would bring with us from Chicago and students that were already out there in San Francisco. So we would sort of bring the two groups together and go meet with all of these companies. And as Esther mentioned, we're going to be trying something new next year. So we're going to be going out and working with the San Francisco branch of the West Coast Initiative. And we're going to sort of create a new class. As Esther mentioned, it's going to be called The Real Deal. And it's a transactional law competition, not so different than what Neka just talked about. It's going to be sort of an intensive 1-week class for students out in San Francisco. Where they're going to be sort of reviewing, drafting, and negotiating early stage financing documents, sort of like a Series seed financing for a startup company. So they're going to have clients, and they're going to have all sorts of information, and they're going to get to interview their clients, similar to how you did in your competition. They'll draft, there'll be negotiations back and forth, another round of negotiations, there'll be some client contact. And it should be fun. It'll be a neat way for them to sort of cap off their experience in San Francisco. And it should be a great experience. We're really looking forward to it. You know, we've, as I mentioned, we're sort of amazed to see what's happening with the West Coast Initiative, how many students are now taking part in it. We love that we've been involved in it, and we can't wait to see all of the different ways we can sort of be involved as it continues to grow.
It's terrific. We're so excited. And it's a way that we get to partner with other programs that are also doing classes and initiatives out in the San Francisco area. And that's kind of what I wanted to end on before we open it up to Q&A. So that's a hint to start thinking of questions if you have any. One of the things I love about Northwestern as a whole, as a university, and that I think is a real differentiator, is all of the separate entrepreneurship programs at the different schools work so collaboratively. It's such a unified group. And in fact, every month we all get together. So today I had lunch with a lunch meeting. I don't want to focus on just the fact that I had a good salad, right? But with the head of the Garage and the head of Farley, that's the entrepreneurship program in the engineering school, Kellogg, usually there's someone from the medical school, from the Buffett Institute, and we all get together to talk about what can we do to make the experience even better for our students. What can the law school offer to Kellogg students? What can the Garage offer to our law students? And we are all so committed to making sure that every student at Northwestern, whatever school you're in, if you're interested in entrepreneurship, we find you, we connect you, we provide programming, and we make sure that you get the types of classes and the types of experiences that are going to prepare you for what you want to do when you graduate. And it's special. There are a lot of universities where the entrepreneurship programs are very siloed. It's the opposite here. We work so collaboratively and are so committed to it. And so for me, I'm so grateful to be part of a university that's so committed to the students and to providing these opportunities. But with that, we would love to answer any questions that you have. We hope we've sold you on law school even more, and that if you come, that you'll want to be part of our program. Yes, please. Bring her out.
Oh, it's a great question. Oh,
Do you remember?
University from
It was a workshop, wasn't it?
Well, she did come to. There were 3 ways she came to us. She came to a workshop and met us through that. She got a referral from another lawyer that she had spoken to but wound up not working with. And then the third was she went to the University of Chicago, and someone down there in their entrepreneurship center recommended our legal services. So, which is not to say that their law school doesn't also have a clinic that offers legal services, but the person at that center recommended us. So it was actually those three ways that she came in. Yeah. So, our, Pat and Aneka, you don't need to listen. Our salaries are paid by tuition, and the philanthropy of donors to the university. So that our salaries. So we don't need to charge for our legal services. And Crystal does pay for any kind of government filing fees, of which there's many, and of course all sort of other things that she does. But for the work that our students do, she's not been paying for it.
Which is new. So we did used to charge for services. For most of the time that our clinic's been around, we charged a nominal amount, so a few $100s a project. But we decided that could be a barrier. So in the last couple of years, we've stopped charging any fees. We never charged fees for not-for-profits, but now we don't charge fees to any of our clients other than the actual out-of-pocket expenses.
So it is a great deal for the entrepreneurs. That's for sure.
So that's in part why we do a lot of the workshops. It's a great question. So we get a lot more applications than we can take on as clients. Allie knows because she does all of the client selection and application review, but we get well over 100 applications, probably closer to 150 applications, and we take 30 to 40 clients a year, sometimes fewer if we can squeeze them in, but that's why we're really committed to doing the workshops and office hours so we can reach beyond the clients that we're able to take on. Lucky clients, lucky us. Any other questions?
They're getting a wonderful education.
Yeah, so I can start. So personally, I have always been interested in entrepreneurship. So coming to Northwestern, and this was one of my biggest pulls or things that made me gravitate towards the school because I knew that I wanted to be a transactional attorney. And then also, could you repeat your second question, please?
What's something you wish you knew before starting attorney?
Something that I wish I knew was probably that when it comes to providing services and things of that nature, I wish I knew how much I would actually learn. And I know that probably sounds strange, but my expectations have been exceeded. I wish I knew just how much I would actually learn because I think that I would have joined the clinic sooner. And this is something that I actually spoke with Professor Esther about 2 weeks ago. I wish I joined clinic sooner because I joined as a 3L last fall and I continued in the spring. But truly, I wish I would have joined clinic sooner because it exceeded my expectations, but also was something that allowed me to really kind of dibble and dabble in a lifelong interest that I've always had.
We wish we had her sooner, too.
Yeah, so I think that what was the first part of the question again? I'm sorry.
Yes, sorry. So what inspired you to join the clinic?
Yeah, so as Esther mentioned at the beginning, we're one of the first transactional clinics in the country, and that was new. I didn't learn that before just now, so that's pretty incredible. But it's really one of the few opportunities to do real transactional work as a law student. So that was definitely an appeal for me. And then I'm going to steal the idea about what I wish I had known sooner so I could have gotten into the clinic sooner. It's just how hands-off things are and how much the professors really trust us to do work. Now, obviously, they're looking over everything, making sure everything looks good, but it just, you get a lot of like real world experience to try a lot of new things that I don't think you get at a lot of clinics at a lot of schools.
It's terrific. Thank you. That was a great question. It's a really high, I mean, it's like in the 90s and
In terms of clinics in general.
clinics in general. You don't mean our clinic, you just mean clinics in general? At Northwestern. So we're one of many clinics at Northwestern, but I think over 90% of Northwestern law students take some clinical experience while they're here. The dean's nodding her head yes, so I think I got it right. Thank you. Yeah, it's such an important part of the law school experience for, I think, many students who graduate. That's one of the things that they really remember. We have a former student in the audience here somewhere. Where are you, Rachel? Yeah. So you can ask her afterwards what she thought of the experience. That's such a great question, and that is so hard. Allie and I do a lot of the initial client selection, and it's so hard to say no. We're always like taking one extra or two extra, figuring out how we can squeeze another client in. But one thing that is different about our clinic than some transactional clinics at other schools is our number one priority is student experience. So of course, we want to serve as many clients as we can, and we have lots of initiatives to reach entrepreneurs, but it's student experience. So as we review the application, we're looking for what would be the best opportunity, the best educational experience, varied projects, and that's our number one consideration when we're doing client selection. And then Allie still tries to get more clients in. Oh.
I can answer that first, I guess. I worked as a teacher, actually, for 2 years. I was teaching high school math in Colorado for Teach for America before I came to law school.
And I came straight through, but specifically I completed a BS MPH, so my undergrad degree was joint connected to my master's degree, which was a master's in public health. That ended in August of 2021, and then at the end of August I started law school.
Wow, impressive. What? Oh, great.
We have clients in California. I think, well, we're sort of limited to where we're licensed, and among the three of us, we're licensed in Illinois, California, and New York. So most of our clients are in Illinois, but we do have some clients in the other two states as well. And then we can do trademark work for clients almost anywhere because that's a federal matter, but for the most part, it's Illinois, California, and New York.
And one of the great opportunities for our students is we're in a program with the United States Patent and Trademark Office where our students actually get to practice before the examiners, so they get a certificate and are able to have conversations and walk through the application on their own, which is a fabulous experience for anyone who wants to go into intellectual property. And I think I saw a question.
Yeah, I'm curious, I've run across several founders, entrepreneurs, they have very personalities. I'm curious if the program teaches client relationship management skills.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's something you don't think about right off the bat when you're working with entrepreneurs, and that absolutely is a big focus of what we teach. We'll sort of, you can tell students, look, all clients are different. Some are hands-on, some are hands-off. Some are going to read every document word for word. Some are going to want to rely on you. Some might be a little challenging in terms of their deadlines. All of that. It's another thing to experience it and to have those different sort of personalities come into play. So we do. We definitely take a hands-off approach to. We let the students take the lead with the clients, and we set up meetings. We'll be on the meetings, but we'll typically want the students running the meeting. For better or worse, right? It can be challenging, but that's part of the learning experience, and we'll sort of debrief afterwards. We step in when necessary if there's something we need to hop in on. But we really want the students to roll their sleeves up and do the work and sort of take the client from beginning and to sort of completing the projects. And part of that is learning how to deal with those different personalities. And we're always amazed that sort of thinking on their feet, being able to sort of pivot in the middle of a call to deal with some challenge that comes up. I think our students do an unbelievable job, and that's the way it's going to be when they're out in the world. So we need them to see it here as well.
Great. Well, I think we're at the hour. This has been so much. Thank you for letting us share our work with you. This is our favorite topic of conversations.
Ourselves.
And thank you guys.
Thank you.